into building with immersive content creation tools. So building for these devices. Building for the immersive web is difficult, as we've heard. It's difficult to do when building experiences with straight code. So this next discussion is going to explore more on no code or code optional 3D content management, APIs and integrations. And to join us, we have, hey, Alan, how you doing?
Hey, what's up, Daniel?
Great to have you.
Great job so far.
Yeah, lots of fun. Just sitting back, enjoying the conversations.
I don't know why your camera keeps bouncing up and down, but that's awesome.
It's on my lap.
You're just very excited?
I'm rocking the house, that's why. We've got Felix Herbst with us, Jonathan Hale, and Ashley Crowder. Can't wait for this one, creation tools. Over to you, Alan. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Daniel. Well, I'm really excited for this one because the MetaVRse, WebXR, Web3, whatever you call it, has to be built by people. And people don't have the tools they need to build them fast. And this is one of the biggest challenges with this entire industry is that how do you go from where we are today to where we'll be in 2030, assuming that if you believe, like I do, that everything in the world will have a digital twin and every website in the world will have a 3D component. If you believe that, by the end of this decade, we're going to need a lot more creators and a lot more creation tools. So I'm very excited to bring on some wonderful people here that are building not only projects and helping brands kind of bring in their 2D world into 3D, but also building the tools that let them do that automated. So without further ado, I'd like to bring Ashley Crowder up from VNTANA. And VNTANA is solving the 3D creation challenge at scale. So how do you, if you're Walmart, create thousands of 3D assets a day to really bring 3D into their website, into their e-com, into the world? So without further ado, Ashley, please introduce yourself, and then we'll move on to the other people as well.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ashley Crowder. I'm the co-founder and CEO of VNTANA. We're a 3D infrastructure platform, as Alan mentioned, to make it easy to manage and distribute 3D at scale. So the big thing that we do is we plug into existing design tools, the way apparel, footwear, accessories, and other designers work today, and instantly optimize and convert those assets to meet the specs of any end use case, whether it's a virtual world like spatial, it's an e-commerce 3D viewer and AR, or Meta, Facebook and Instagram, wherever you need it.
Okay, so Ashley, thank you very much for that. I'm going to move over to Jonathan Hale. Jonathan is the co-founder and CTO and CEO, I believe, of Wonderland Engine. So you're the creative genius behind a new creation platform on the web to deliver games and apps at scale. So please introduce yourself and your product.
Exactly. We built Wonderland Engine, which is a development platform for VR, AR, and 3D on the web, pretty much in that order. We focus on high-performant, like large-scope VR projects on the web. And we're trying to make it possible for developers to spend more time on their own apps rather than spending time on optimization and optimizing their assets. So that's what Wonderland Engine does for you as a development platform.
Amazing. I'm very excited to see how, if we marry VNTANA and Wonderland Engine, what that looks like. Felix, thank you so much for joining us. Felix is from a company called Needle, and Needle is building some wonderful creation tools, I believe, to bring Unity onto the web. Is that correct?
Yes, partially. So basically, we're building multiple products. One is a runtime site to make 3D on the web like very fast and easy, make XR work across systems and so on. And the other, I would argue, very important part is where do you get the content from? And we're trying to bridge the gap between basically tools like Unity that have awesome like asset management, where lots of pipelines and companies already work and have their stuff. And we're exporting from that and making that incredibly easy to bring your interactivity, bring your components and so on along without compromising on the ability to make it really your own or make it complex, add your own code and all these kind of things.
Amazing. Well, this is going to be a great conversation, and I'll just introduce myself quick. I'm Alan Smithson. I'm a co-founder at a company called MetaVRse, METAVRSE, and we have built more of an enterprise creation platform for taking 3D objects and then building them into virtual scenes, worlds, and experiences, all with as little code as possible and using JavaScript to fill in the blanks with that. So very excited about this. What I'd like to do is just have a roundtable discussion from you guys to set the stage for where you see we're gonna be going in the next kind of, let's call it 8 years, by the end of the decade here. What are your predictions on where 3D will be as it relates to kind of the world we live in? Just very, very high level. And then what I want to do is drill into your each individual tools and how we get from here where we are today to 2030 using the tools that you're creating. So perhaps we'll start with Ashley again.
Sure. So, the auto industry was probably the first to adopt 3D design, from a design and manufacturing perspective. And now every other industry is starting to catch up. So with the apparel and footwear companies we talk to, all major enterprises have invested in 3D design now, but that's starting to trickle down to the mid-market and smaller companies. So, in the next 8 years, everyone who designs and manufactures a product will be designing in 3D because it provides a much better blueprint to the manufacturer. It reduces cost. It enables you to do more testing before you invest in heavy tooling. So this is, cost savings and increased speed to market for any business. And then with that, because more and more people are having 3D designs, when I talk to some of our platform partners, I'm like, yeah, we have 20,000 3D models on VNTANA. And they're like, what? I'm like, because our clients design this way now. Hugo Boss launches 40,000 products a year and they're designing in 3D. So for us, we saw, if VNTANA can solve the problem of taking those existing designs, automatically optimizing, converting them for any end use case, because every platform has its own special requirements, then it really unlocks the millions of consumer experience possibilities or better B2B sales. I'm really excited for, new, cheaper and better headsets to come out. Meta just announced theirs yesterday. It's expensive, but it's amazing what it can do. Yep, there you go. And so, I think we're going to have just more and more end use cases. But when I talk to specifically brands and about e-commerce, this is like when video became available and mobile, when mobile first started.
Crazy that we just assumed video was always there. Does anybody really remember when you used to get an email? I'm old, but you used to get an email and it was ASCII characters making an image and you thought that was super cool.
Yeah.
And then photos came and we just assumed photos were part of it. And now video, look at this, real streaming from Germany, West Coast of America and Canada, like it's nothing.
Yeah. And if you don't have video, it's like, what are you doing? That's going to be 3D very, very soon on any consumer facing experience.
I love that. If you don't have 3D, what are you doing? I love that. So Felix, we'll pass it over to you. How are you seeing kind of the world in 2030 and how do we get there using the tools that you're building?
Yeah, so I think what we're going to see is that we're going to see a similar change of how people build and consume apps than what we saw with mobile. Basically, terms like responsive design only came to be once like mobile was there. Before that was, okay, you have your laptop and that's how you, or your desktop, and that's how you consume stuff. And I think responsive is going to extend into the third dimension, and it's already starting to do that. Like, you're not going to have websites that are just shiny storefronts anymore. You're going to have websites that you can step into in one way or another, be it collaborative, be it with other people, or be it on your own. But it's going to be an expectation. Like the more VR and AR headsets are going into the consumer market, the more obvious becomes the need that your website needs to do that, right? Your website needs to extend into the third dimension. And I think this is something that has started, but is currently incredibly expensive to build. Like usually people or large companies usually contract someone, make us a VR app, make us an AR app, build us a website. And the interesting point is going to be, how can this come together? Like how can tools enable people to build and think in this way? Like how can you build one thing and have the confidence that this is going to scale like across platforms and across mediums? And I think this is one fascinating point from like what consumers are going to expect. And I think there's another trend which is more important for like the builder and creator side of things, which is the alignment between formats and between like standards to build upon. Like things like GLTF and USD are on the rise and like basically already outperform most of the like formats that are in use today when it comes to using in the web and in AR and so on. And what I think is interesting for creators is that this makes it so easy to bring your content from one platform to another. Like basically what Ashley has mentioned, like if you have your assets in the right formats, then it's up to the creators to which platform they go, which obviously it increases the things that people expect from new tools and platforms, in the sense that can I take my stuff out again at some point? Can I bring it somewhere else? Like, what if I want to move it to another platform and so on? And yeah, and I think this is also changing the landscape quite a lot, that these formats are being developed in the open. Like basically, for example, Needle Engine uses GLTF at the core, and we're documenting everything that we add to it, like enabling it for other people to build on top of our interactive components and make things compatible between systems and so on.
I find it really interesting that you mentioned right off the beginning, you said GLTF and USD. I feel like we're at that beta and VHS turning point in humanity. Do we go down the beta route, which is better graphics, or do we go down the VHS route, which just had better marketing? And so, I mean, it comes down to, can we settle on two standards? Or can USD be the wrapper around a bunch of GLTFs, perhaps? It's interesting, if anybody wants to kind of get involved with that, the MetaVRse Standards Forum launched, I think, in the summer in June. There's 1,800 plus members already. And so what everybody's trying to do is come together and really drive those standards to be, as easy as just sending you a JPEG. If I send you an image, you open it, it looks exactly as I sent it. GLTFs can be different. You can have different texture files. You can look different on different viewers, this types of things. So really fantastic. So Jonathan, I want to bring you into here because I know you're building directly on the web. So whereas Felix is building tools to bring apps and games and stuff off of the traditional app stores and into the web, you're actually natively allowing people to build into the web, kind of like we are. But maybe you can explain your vision between now and 2030 and how the Wonderland engine is going to enable people to, one thing that I want to just say is everybody keeps talking about the metaverse as the internet, as the web, but most of the current tools that we have today don't work on the web. And so, Jonathan, take it away.
So I see how VR is going to replace the desktop for us for work. So effectively, desktop replaced by VR. And I believe that the AR headsets, eventually, when they get to the right form factor, will replace our mobile phones. So we'll be dealing with spatial computing all the time. And assume you walk into a restaurant. If the restaurant has an AR menu, you're definitely not going to go and install their restaurant menu app and then just deinstall it once you leave again. But you're probably going to tap some QR code and then just view it on the web. So I believe that web apps are going to be as essential as web apps are today, but for XR in the future. And with that, I always had a very crass interest around WebXR and how to do AR and VR on the web. And we found out back when launching a VR browser games platform that it's actually really difficult to build these VR experiences on the web. And that is mainly due to the extreme performance requirements that you have in VR to make things feel comfortable for the user. So we've decided to build a framework from the ground up, basically, for WebGL, built using WebAssembly with C++, to make the most performant web framework specialized for VR on the web, and basically give the entire development experience that native developers currently have with massive game engines like Unreal Engine and Unity. So we have a very strong focus on performance and workflow and try to make it really, really fast to build on the web. And we're kind of bringing the web developer mindset to XR in that way, because developers are just used to changing their code and then immediately seeing the result in the browser, right? And the same can be done also for VR with WebXR, luckily.
Awesome. Well, Jonathan, somebody says that's not actually 100% true. There are settings you can tweak in Unity. I'll let you answer that. I did just want to point out, we just posted the websites for VNTANA, Needle, Wonderland Engine, and MetaVRse. If you are interested, you can just click through those as well. But Jonathan, maybe I'll let you address that because we have live feedback coming in from the ether.
I appreciate proofing my my words, but I'm not really sure what it refers to.
I'm not sure.
What exactly did I say?
I've never seen anything that makes Unity go on the web that easily. It's never easy.
So I think you're referring to pixel streaming, which is extremely expensive. So
no, it's cheap. It's only $1 per user per minute, I think it is.
Yeah. So maybe that's what they're referring to, but it's extremely expensive. And if you're thinking about like Adidas.com, like it's 1 million viewers a day, like it's it can't. I'm excited for Wonderland Engine and what you can provide. So.
Yeah, me too. And I know your focus is around games and apps. And one thing you said is really interesting: apps versus web apps. And I think, I wrote an article called "Could Web-Based Game Engines Be the End of the App Stores?" And the reason I wrote it wasn't to get clicks. It was really to dig into, okay, these tools are coming up on the web because up until now, if you were a JavaScript developer or a web creator or a web dev, you were locked out of the 3D creation process. You had to have to go learn Unity, C++, C#, C++ for Unreal, and you were really kind of locked out because this stuff just didn't work on the web. So the fact that you got it to work on the web, and actually we got it to work on the web as well, is a major step forward. Now, I know there are other factors involved because making it work on the web on a desktop is a little different than making it work on the web on a phone. And I think in order to have complete ubiquity, and then of course VR headsets are even a bigger challenge because now you're rendering it in stereoscopic at 90 frames because anything less than that's going to make you feel kind of queasy. So what are some of the challenges around, I guess, building the market for this? Because right now, I think everybody looks at Unity and Unreal and they're like, oh, that's the de facto standards. But as we move forward, as the web becomes more powerful, the devices become more powerful. What do you think are going to be some of the things required to do this at scale beyond what we're building here? But one thing, for example, would be AI creation tools. For example, I can take a photograph and turn it into a 3D object automatically using AI. Now, I've seen a bunch of these tools. Kadem is one of them. There's a bunch of these tools. None of them are quite there yet from what I've seen, but maybe you can speak to some of those things that are coming up. Anybody?
Yeah, so you mentioned the MetaVRse group. We're actually a part of the Chronos group, which I know is like associated, but the Chronos group for a long time has been pushing standards for GLTF and WebXR. And so I think, to your point, having standards for everyone so that if you're looking at a GLB file on this device or that device or a different platform, it looks the same, right? So that consistency is so important. Especially, we work with a lot of fashion clients and, that Versace red better be that exact Versace red everywhere you're looking at it, right? Like, or it's a huge problem.
It's a big problem, and brands will lambaste you for it. Yeah, that's
so. And it's their brand, and I get it, right? And then even buyers, consumers, that's the whole point, right? Like, people are getting more and more comfortable shopping online, but it's because we can provide better imagery and now interactive 3D imagery that gives them a better understanding of the product they're actually going to get. And so if it doesn't, the product they get in the mail doesn't look like what they were looking at, whether it was in a virtual world or the website, that's a problem. So I think those standards are super important. And so many companies like NVIDIA and MetaVRse and VNTANA are all contributing, which I think is really important. And then, everything with 5G, 5G and edge computing and being able to actually send these huge files everywhere. Most footwear designs that we work with, they start with 3 million polygons and can be a gigabyte in size. Our compression can get that down.
That's like half a movie in like 720.
One shoot. Yeah. And, our compression can get it down to under 10 megabytes, which is great. But like, even, if you're on like a edge network, that's still not great. I think
you're still waiting a few seconds to load.
Will be huge. Yeah.
So
yeah, I think
Sorry, go ahead, Felix. Go ahead.
Just wanted to say, I think this poses an interesting question, and one that we have thought about quite a lot in terms of like file sizes and optimized experiences and so on. That's like, I think in many cases this like with TV screens and so on, like and phones, resolutions get denser and denser and denser, and that's not necessarily something that consumers need. It's something that is basically developed because it might be needed in the future, or because it might unlock new use cases in the end. But I would argue that in many cases, it's not necessary to have a super high fidelity web experience or have one that is photorealistic and needs to be render streamed or whatever. It's about the experiences that people have. Like if you can get the right experience over, that can be, it can have 5 polygons. It doesn't matter. If you have a good time, then that's success. So, and I think that's something where I think for the success of this, the chains need to get shorter basically and not longer. Like if the only way is to like take giant assets and like put your, I don't know, nanite lumen landscapes into the web, then of course that's going to take a giant tool chain. It's going to take quite a while, and the end result is still something that's small because it needs to be optimized. And I think same as with other platforms, what we're going to see is that more and more developments are going to happen for these mediums, for these platforms. Like you're building for these responsive spaces, basically. And with that in mind, you still need to, like, if you want to have a car in there, you need to optimize that. But that's not the only thing that's going on. Like you need to shorten the iteration cycles and so on like iterating on that. How can you make that really quick? And at that point, I think there's a number of questions in the chat regarding Unity, and why are so many like engines and so on popping up left and right trying to bring experiences to the web if things like Unity and Unreal have that or have parts of that. And personally, I think all of this like boils down to iteration times and like a feel of building something in and for the web. And the interesting observation there is, if you have a system like Unity, you have all these features, you have all these capabilities, which works great if you're like exporting to 10 different or 20 different platforms. That's awesome, and that's how it should be. But it's not great if you're trying to shrink all that functionality down into web-ready experiences. And this is where I think a lot of
if you didn't have to have an iOS person, an Android person, a desktop person all on your team to build one experience across.
Yeah, I mean that's the other part about all these kind of differences being reduced to, okay, which web standards are well supported. So like, okay, someone else is taking care of like making that surface right to basically build cross-platform apps. And yeah, so that's basically where you have things like Unity, and they're trying to shrink down, and they're making good efforts to like get load times faster and better. But ultimately, they're coming from, here's all our features. How do we get that into the web? Like worst case is someone uses everything. And I think what we see happening is that a bunch of people have seen the other side of the coin in terms of like web development workflows, where you go, okay, here's my text editor, here's my website, I save that change and it's live. Like what's compile times, right? And this is, I think, a big driver for a lot of these new systems and new developments and bridging these gaps. And that just makes iteration times much faster, which in turn allows to like build better and try out things and not just like, okay, works in my one system, and now on that other platform, actually I have to invest a lot to make it happen again.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. One thing you mentioned, Ashley, was interactive 3D. We're taking, going from photos and videos where you're kind of scrolling, watching passively, to interactive 3D. And I think this is where kind of tools like Wonderland Engine come in, where you're able to build something, put it out there, and let people interact with it and walk around a space or touch something and do so in maybe by themselves or with people. And I think that really becomes the difference between a regular website. And I say this all the time because we're building the world's largest virtual mall called The Mall. And I'll put the link. If you guys sign up for the link, it'll be the new website will be out in a couple of weeks. It's really sick. But what I keep saying to people is, you have these e-commerce platforms like Walmart.com or Amazon.com, but they're ruthless procurement of goods. You don't invite your friends to go, hey, lean over my shoulder, we'll go shopping at Amazon. No, you just order the thing, you look for 5 stars, you hit go. Whereas I think we need to kind of bring the joy of people together in these experiences and websites. So Jonathan, maybe you can explain how Wonderland Engine is allowing people to build directly to the web and do so, to build games, apps, and experiences that are interactive and exciting.
So Wonderland Engine is a full development platform similar to Unity. We have a very nice JavaScript API, and people can just build their custom components in JavaScript and then interact with anything they can on the web. Let it be a JavaScript library that already runs on the web, or let it be any browser API that you want. It could be any web service, any web server. So effectively, the possibility is endless, and we just try to take care of making the rendering as smooth as possible so that is what you don't have to do.
Amazing. Speaking of rendering, because I know this has been a problem with some of the VR platforms. So like Altspace, for example, has a limitation of, I don't know if it's still the same, but it used to be 100,000 polygons and 10 megabytes for the entire project. And these could be environments and worlds that are super huge. You're flying around with your friends. What are your kind of limitations around, because I know the web is very limited at some points, typically because of single threading versus multi-threading on the browsers. But what are your kind of limitations around polygons and that sort of thing?
So I think there's a huge myth around the web being slow as in of itself, right? Because the underlying hardware is the same, right? The GPU doesn't detect, oh, this came from the web. Let's go into throttle mode and just work a little bit slower. There's a tiny bit of overhead for doing draw calls on the web, and that's why that is a little bit slower. But if you optimize correctly for the web and for the specific performance characteristics of the web, then you can actually achieve very close to native performance. You just need to maybe be mindful that WebGL gives you a certain amount of control, and everything else you need to be very creative to do that. But yeah, so myth dispelled, I hope.
This is fascinating, and I'm sure we could talk about this literally all day and this entire XR summit. So I do believe we're running out of time. So I just wanted to say thank you, Felix, Ashley, Jonathan, and Daniel for hosting, and everybody behind the scenes who are putting this thing together, the WebXR Production Summit. Again, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for your wisdom, your knowledge, and sharing it with the world. I know all of you are out there every day on LinkedIn and social media, sharing the new things you see, sharing the new, and I think just keep pushing this forward. I know the industry is better off for all of you guys being in it, and everybody watching. Thank you for spending your time with us. And yeah, over to you, Daniel. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Alan, Felix, Ashley, and Jonathan. I wanted to say, Alan, how brave you are to start off by saying, let's look 8 years ahead. I was thinking, if we think 8 years back, that was 2014, and the Oculus Developer Kit 1 had just come out, kind of thing. 8 years is a long, long time, but I will be shopping in your mall, Alan, quite soon. Sooner than later, I hope.
Awesome,
so thank you so much for that. Yeah,
thank you.
excellent.
I'm helping out. Have a great one, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.